Now tonight we're going to read the story from the Roald Dahl book called James and the Giant Peach. And we're going to read chapter 24. So if you can remember, the peach is flying through the air being pulled by the, is it pigeons or seagulls? Seagulls, isn't it? There it is, flying in the air. And the men on the ship are looking up and they can see a peach flying in the air. "Call the ship's doctor," said the first officer. "Our captain is not well." A moment later, the great round ball disappeared into a cloud, and the people on the ship never saw it again. That's the peach disappearing. And don't forget, they've seen James on top of the sheep, on top of the peach. But up on the peach itself, everyone was still happy and excited. "I wonder where we'll finish up this time," the earthworm said. "Who cares?" they answered. "Seagulls always go back to the land sooner or later." Up and up they went, high above the highest clouds, and the peach swaying gently from side to side as it floated along. "Wouldn't this be a perfect time for a little music?" the ladybird asked. How about it, old grasshopper?" "With pleasure, dear lady," the old grasshopper answered, bowing from the waist. "Oh, hooray! He's going to play for us!" they cried, and immediately the whole company sat themselves down in a circle around the old green musician, that's the grasshopper, and the concert began. From the moment that the first note was struck, the audience became completely spellbound. And as for James, never had he heard such beautiful music as this. In the garden at home on summer evenings, he had listened many times to the sound of grasshoppers chirping in the grass, and he had always liked the noise that they made. But this was a different kind of noise altogether. This was real music, chords, harmonies, tunes, and all the rest of it. And what a wonderful instrument the old green grasshopper was playing upon. It was like a violin. It was almost exactly as though he was playing upon a violin. The bow of the violin, the part that moved, was his back leg. The strings of the violin, the part that made the sound, was the edge of his wing. He was using only the top of his back leg, the thigh, and he was stroking this up and down against the edge of his wing with incredible skill. Sometimes slowly, sometimes fast, but always with the same easy flowing action. It was precisely the way a clever violinist would have used his bow, and the music came pouring out and filled the whole blue sky all around them with magic music melodies. When the first part was finished, everyone shouted and clapped madly, and Miss Spider stood up and shouted, "Bravo! Bravo! Encore! Encore! Give us some more! Give us some more!" "Did you hear that, James?" the old green grasshopper said, smiling at the small boy. "Oh, I loved it," James answered. "It was beautiful. It was as though you had a real violin in your hands." "A real violin?" the old grasshopper cried. "Good heavens, I like that. My dear boy, I am a real violin. It's part of my own body." "But do all grasshoppers play their music on violins the same way as you do?" James asked him. "No," he answered, "not all. But if you want to know, I happen to be a short-horned grasshopper. I have two short feelers coming out of my head. Can you see them? There they are. They are quite short, aren't they? That's why they call me a shorthorn. And we shorthorns are the only ones who play our music in the violin style using a bow. My long-horned relatives, the ones who have long, curvy feelers coming out of their heads, make their music simply by rubbing the edges of their two top wings together. They are not violinists, they are wing rubbers, and a rather inferior noise these wing rubbers produce too, if I may say so. It sounds more like a banjo than a fiddle. How fascinating this all is, said James. And to think that up until now I had never wondered how a grasshopper made his sounds. My dear fellow, the old green grasshopper said gently, there are a whole lot of things in this world of ours that you haven't started wondering about yet. Where, for example, do you think that I keep my ears? Your ears? Why, in your head, of course. Everyone burst out laughing. You mean you don't even know that? Cried the centipede. You don't know that? Try again, said the old green grasshopper, smiling at James. You can't possibly keep them somewhere else. Oh, can't I? Well, I give up. Where are they? Where do you keep your ears? Right here, the old green grasshopper said. One on each side of my tummy. It's not true. Of course it's true. What's so peculiar about that? You ought to see where my cousins, the crickets and the ladybirds, keep theirs. Where do they keep them? In their legs, one in each front leg, just below the knee. You mean you don't know that? You mean you don't know that either? The centipede said scornfully. You're joking, James said. Nobody could possibly have ears in his legs. Why not? Because it's ridiculous, that's why. You know what I think is ridiculous? The centipede said, grinning away as usual. I don't mean to be rude, but I think it is ridiculous to have ears on the sides of one's head. It certainly looks ridiculous. You ought to take a peek in the mirror someday and see it for yourself. Pest! Cried the earthworm. Why must you always be so rude and rambunctious to everyone? You ought to apologize to James right now. And that's the end of the chapter.
Another.
Now we're going to go and eat now. But I don't mind telling you more tonight if you want.
More tonight.
Okay, tonight you get a bit more. You want the next chapter tonight?
Yes.
The next chapter is going to be 25 and our dinner's ready.